Hi guys, welcome everyone. My name is Vera and today I'm going to show you how to paint this wonderful painting right here. Now guys, remember this is a video recording, so go at your own pace. Take as many breaks as needed. Don't rush through this. You can come back and finish it anytime if something comes up and you can't finish it today. You don't have to do it all in one sitting. The video is going to stay right here on our YouTube. It's not going anywhere, so don't rush through this. And you can rewind back and rewatch segments of this video as needed. Now let's go through all our supplies that we're going to need for today. First thing you're going to need is a canvas. I will be using 9 by 12 inch canvas. So it's not very big, but you guys are welcome to use bigger or smaller sizes. It doesn't matter at all. You can do this in absolutely any size. The only thing I would say, keep in mind, the bigger you go, the bigger your brushes should be. The smaller you go, the smaller your brushes should be. So I will be using a set of brushes that I have right here. I will talk about them in a second. But make sure you adjust the size of your brushes proportionally to the size of your canvas. So if you go with, let's say, twice bigger the size of canvas, you may want to grab the brushes that are twice bigger. Except for the small detailed brush, you will need this one regardless of the size you're using. The same goes for smaller canvas. If you go, let's say, with half of this, make sure you grab smaller brushes. You don't need larger brushes in that case. Alright, another thing you're going to need is paint. I'm going to be using student grade acrylic paint, primary colors only. And I'm going to show you guys how to mix them into all the shades that we'll be using for this painting. If you guys have, however, premixed paint and you prefer that, you're welcome to use that as well. From premixed paint, you may need pink, you may need purple, and you may need some kind of peach or coral color if you're using premixed. If you're using primaries like me, you're going to need red, yellow, blue, black, and white. Now, in regard to which red you're going to use, we need a very particular red. We need anything that is on a pinker side. So basically, do not use any red that has orange pigment. You see, if I rub this one in, if I make it a little more transparent, it has this magenta tint and magenta undertone. This is the red you want to use here. You want to avoid any red that has orange tint to it. And the reason why is because we're going to be mixing purple. And purple is best made out of this pink, out of this red, or even just straight magenta. You can use that too. If you have dark pink, you're welcome to use that as well instead of red. And if you use a red with an orange tint, it's just not going to give you a beautiful purple. It's going to be very muddy color, so that's why we advise against that red. Other than that, any color is good. Any yellow, any blue, any black, any white is totally fine. Just we're very particular about red. So magenta undertone red or dark pink would be ideal here. Alright, and we're going to need water, and of course we're going to need paper towel to dab our brushes on it. Now in regard to brushes, there are 3 brushes you have to have, but you can use optional 4 brushes. So you're going to need something bigger for the background, because we're going to start with covering our canvas fully with a background. In my case, it's going to be number 11 brush, square. But that's just a personal preference. You're welcome to use any brush that's medium to large in any shape and any number. It doesn't really matter. Next brush that you want to use is either medium or medium small. So basically you can use something like this or something like this. In my case, I have both of them. I have number 10. And this is likely number 6. I can find the number on this one. Yeah, it's very faded, number 6. Okay, this is number 10 and number 6. So either one of them is good. So basically anything between number 10 and number 6. So 10, 8, 6, anything you have, you're welcome to use. But I'm going to grab both of them because I think I may be able to use both of them on different areas. And of course, you need one detailed brush. This is number 0. It's actually number 0, not in the best condition. I have a better brushes here, but I'm going to start with this one, and then if it doesn't give me a good brush strokes that I'm hoping for, I'm going to grab newer brush. I'm going to grab a new number 0, because this number 0 is just, it's been used quite a few times, so it's not as good. So yeah, for small brush, it's important that you have a nice pointy tip. That's mostly what we're looking for. You can use number 3, Technically, you can use any brush as long as it has a super nice pointy tip, but number 0 is probably most ideal for the small details such as trees and some smaller clouds. So this is important regardless of the size you use. And that's pretty much it, guys. That's all that we're going to be using today. So what we're going to start with is we're going to start by laying our background. We're going to start with that section there. Did you see? It's light yellow. It's on the right, somewhere around here on the right. Is that light yellow? We're going to add it somewhere around here. Then we're going to move to a light peach. Then peach is going to pick up intensity, and we're going to do slightly darker peach. And then we're going to do magenta or very bright hot pink. And we'll finish on purple on the bottom. After we have that, we're going to do this darker top chunk right here. And we're going to do it with medium to light purple. That is cold, and then transitioning that color into more of a warm medium to light purple that's almost borderline hot pink. Once we have that, we're going to work on a second layer. And a second layer is going to include some yellow light reflection on our water. It's going to include a variety of small pink and purple clouds on our lighter part of the sky, and then we'll finish with a darker cloud, well, with a pinker clouds on top of our sky. And then after all our background is done, the only left step would be left for us is black. So we're going to do that horizon line, and we're going to position our trees. That would be the end of it. All right, so for right now, we're going to start with, actually we're going to mix our peach color first, so we have it pre-mixed for us to use. How are we going to do this? You're going to start with a base of white. Scoop some white on the side. If you're using small canvas, you don't need much. If you're using bigger canvas, let's say 16 by 20 inch, you may want to use a bit more to not to have to mix it again. And then we're going to add a little bit of red to it and a little bit of yellow. So I added a little bit. It clearly is not enough, so I'm going to just continue adding it until I arrive at the right color. We're getting close. Not yet. Okay, I'm happy with this color. It's like a nice light salmon. So it's a little bit more pastel than salmon color, but it's really nice color. You could go lighter, you could go darker. That's totally up to you guys. It's not a very particular color that you have to use. As long as it's in that salmon, orange, peachy color scheme, coral, that's all good. So I'm going to wash my brush now. And by the way, I'm using the biggest brush that I have. And now I'm going to make my light yellow. So I'm going to scoop some white on the side once again. You don't need much of that. And I'm going to add just a little bit of yellow to make it nice, very light yellow. Don't make this too dark. You want it super pastel. And then with this color, I would say, so imagine the middle of the canvas. Just put an imaginary line right in the middle of your canvas, and then higher than that, in like a curved line, we're going to start applying our yellow. It's not too bad if you go a little bit too high. That's okay. Feel free to go a little bit higher than you will need in the end. It's a problem if you don't go high enough. And cover the bigger chunk than we want to see in the end, because we're going to overlap our peach over this color. So don't be afraid to cover here a little bit too much. And also feel free to use a generous amount of paint, because we need to blend. So it's always good to have a lot of paint. It makes for easier blending. If you guys want to do your edges, feel free to add, whenever you come to an edge of your painting, feel free to bring the color that you're using right over the edge. That way, once you're done, you're going to have image that goes right around the sides of your canvas. So now, without even washing my brush, I'm just going to grab a little bit of this pre-made salmon color. And first, I'm going to add it underneath. to make like a little section here. And again, use quite a bit of paint. You don't have to use a little bit. So do you see I covered the section underneath. Now, my brush is pretty much empty. Do you see it doesn't have much paint left? It has a little bit, but not a lot. So now you can either dab it off on a paper towel or use what you have. If you don't have much, it's good, but if you still have lots, just dab it off on a paper towel. And now we're going to start blending it up into our yellow. So you're just going to go over that line where your two colors connect, and then you're going to continue going up and dragging that a little bit of peach over into your yellow. And then you can go down and then up again and continue doing that up and down while doing side to side. Just go side to side up, side to side down, and so on. You don't need to blend it all the way to the top, because remember, you see here on this painting, it's not like a full transition, it's just a nice transition area here. I'm actually going to add a little bit more peach color from the left. All right, that's exactly what I needed. Now, I want to make my peach color a little bit more vibrant. So what I'm going to do, again, I'm just going to add a bit more red and a bit more yellow to make it more intense. And with this, I'm going to add a little bit underneath as well. So next little section here. And then again, as soon as you have, well, actually, we can go a little bit lower with that. Again, quite generously with the amount of paint that we're using. If you're doing your edges, go right over your edge. I'll add this little chunk in a second. I completely forgot about it. If you're not doing your edges, that's okay too. You don't have to do that. You can always do that in the end. And now again, once you run out of paint or almost have next to nothing left, you're going to bring it up and blend it into your second chunk. Now here, I want to fix up my sides a little bit because I forgot about my second chunk. So I still have a little bit of that paint. So I'm going to do that now. I haven't decided yet whether I'm going to continue doing my edges or not. I just wanted to show you guys that's an option that you could do. But also at this point, I'm quite invested. So maybe I will continue doing them. All right, now I'm going to do hot pink. And all this you need to do fast. You don't want the paint to dry. It's much easier to blend it when it's wet. When it's dry, it's completely different technique. So we're doing this on wet. So don't stop just yet. So what I'm going to do next is I'm actually going to start with red. I'm going to scoop some red on the side. And then to that, I'm going to add a little bit of, well, maybe a little more of white, just not a lot. We're not trying to make nice light pink. We're making a super vibrant hot pink. So this is just majority of red mixed with some white. And again, we're going to go right here. And we're going to add that hot pink. We're going to bring it up a little bit over our salmon. And then when we don't have too much paint left on our brush, we're going to continue mixing it up until we have a nice blending. And again, I'm going to go over my edges with this color too. All right, this is beautiful. Now after this, I'm going to move to my purple. So to make purple, I'm going to start with red. I'm going to scoop some red on the side. Let's mix right here. Then to this red, I'm going to add blue, not equal parts. You always want to have majority of red and less blue. Mostly red with some blue. And you can always add blue if needed as well if it doesn't turn out just right. And then because mine turns out so dark, even though it's completely purple, if you look at it here, I need to add a little bit of white. So I'm going to add a little bit of white just to see the color better, not because I want it light. You want something medium to dark, I would say. We'll add a little bit more blue. Okay, and now with this purple, I'm going to go right on the bottom here. You know, actually, let's add a little bit more white. This seems still a little too dark. Oh yeah, that's better. So we'll do our purple here. And of course, as soon as you covered all the white canvas in that area and you want to run out of paint, you don't have too much paint on your brush, now you can continue blending it up. You don't need to blend it too high up. As soon as the two colors are merged and it doesn't look like, you know, you took colored paper and you just did two cutouts of magenta and purple, as soon as there's some blending in between, stop. You don't have to continue blending. It doesn't need to go high up. In fact, you don't want that because then you're going to lose your pink and you want to preserve your pink. So stop right here. And I'm going to go to my sides as well. I'm going to make sure I added that to my sides too because the choice been made. I'm going all the way to the side. And I'll do the bottom as well. Now, by the way, guys, if you're a person who likes to take breaks in between, and you remember how I told you don't take any breaks just yet because this needs to be done on wet? Well, good news is you can take a break. You can totally take a break at this point because we did on wet everything that needs to be done on wet. So this needed to be done on wet. This, and then that does not need to be done on wet. So this needed to be done on wet. Now you can take a break if you want to. Not forcing you. If you'd rather not, totally fine. If you don't have to take a break, you can totally continue working here. But also if you do want it, now's the time. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to make this pinkish color that we're going to start with, and then we're going to bring it further to like a medium light purple. So I'm going to take a little bit of this purple as a base for my next color. If you still have enough, if not, make it again. It's just red, blue, and white. That's all it is. And I'm going to add a bit more white to it and a bit more red because it should be lighter than your bottom and definitely pinker. So it's the same ingredients, it's just different proportions this time. This time it should be a little bit more red than last time and a little bit more white than last time. So this is a good color, I think. Do you see in comparison it's much pinker and it's definitely lighter. I'm going to add it somewhere around here. I don't think I made enough, to be honest. Let's make some more. Then I'm going to bring it up. Again, you can use quite a bit of paint here. And maybe I'll bring this corner lower actually. It's a little too high. Oh yeah, that's better. Of course, I'm going to do my edge too. All right, and now I'm going to grab that colder purple. So if you still have purple that we used for the bottom, like for me, I still have just a little bit, you can add a little bit of white to it to make it lighter because you don't need that intensity. And you're going to need to add a little bit of blue to make it a little colder. So with this bluey purple color, well, in my case it's actually a little bit too much of blue. Let's add a bit more red again. Oh yeah, so with this colder and lighter purple color, we're going to finish our sky. And these two colors you need to do on wet as well, so you can blend them well into one another. I'm going to need to make again more color because clearly I don't make enough. And that's all right. It's totally not a problem. And then we're going to blend it down. So I'm going to start by overlapping my first purple. And then I'm just going to drag it down a little bit so there's a nice blending there. And I'm going to stop before I go too far down because there are certain areas on the bottom, certain area right here on the bottom that I don't want to be mixed. I want it to be the original color that I started with. And of course I'm going to do the sides as well, so we stay consistent with that. And let's do the top as well. Beautiful. Do you see how nice it looks? Totally looks like a wrap around your canvas frame, which is a nice look. Alrighty. I'm going to wash my brush, the big brush, and I'm going to put it aside because I don't need it anymore. I'm not going to be using my big brush. Oh, camera, come on. Focus. Yeah. Very, very good, guys. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to decide where my horizon line is going to be. If you have a pencil, which I totally do, you can use it to just like put a little line where your horizon line is going to be. It's going to make it easier. If you don't have the pencil, that's okay. You can just either imagine where it is, or you can take a small brush and whichever paint. You can take purple, you can take pink, yellow, whatever. Just make a really, really fine line where that's going to be, just to help you navigate and position things properly. So for me, I would say somewhere around here is going to be my horizon line. I'm just going to do one little line. Again, this is just for me to know where things are. All right, great. And now we're going to move on to the reflection on the water. And why do you want to do that first? Because this should be pretty dry by now. And then we're going to move on to our clouds. And again, we'll do this section first before we move to the section, so it has a little bit more time to dry, because we did that last. So here, you can use any medium-ish brush. You can even use small brush, but I would say medium brush is probably going to give you a better result here. So for me, I'm going to use my medium small. This is number 6, pointy. Pointy, square, doesn't matter at all. And we're going to take some white, some yellow, mix them up. And with that light yellow, we're going to take just a little bit of it, by the way. We're going to dry brush it on. And our light reflection should be a bit whiter on top. And as we go to the bottom, it should get smaller, smaller, and smaller. that looks pretty great. And that was my light yellow. I'm actually going to add a little bit of white there too, but I need more white. I kind of ran out, so let me get a touch more white. And for those of you guys who are wondering what paint I'm using, since I'm adding more paint, I'm going to show you right away. This is a Starred acrylic paint. You get it at Curry's. By the way, they do not sponsor this video. I don't think they know we use their paint, so this is not a paid advertisement. This is just because we get often asked what paint we use. Another thing I want to do here is I want to add a little bit of white right in the middle to make it a little bit pop a little bit more. So now I'm just going to take a touch of white. I washed my brush, by the way, and I'm going to add a bit of that just in the middle. All right, now I have light yellow, but I also have a bit of white in the middle. That makes it a little more contrast. And what I want to do, I want to take a little bit more white as well, and I want to lighten up this edge right here. So super, super close to my top, to my purple top. I'm just going to add a little bit of white right here to make this edge glow. And then I'm going to wash my brush, dab it off on a paper towel, and I'm going to smudge it down just with a clean brush to see that section looks whiter, just like a little section here, to add that added glow. You can do the entire thing if you wanted to. I kind of wanted just a little section here. Alrighty, now we can move on to our clouds on our right here. So we're going to have a purple darker clouds that are closer to the bottom. Then we're going to have a smaller clouds. They're going to be done in pink, and then I'm going to add a little shade of purple on some that are closer to the bottom. So let's start with the biggest ones, I guess. Let's start with the bottom purple ones. They're going to be done in a cold purple. I'm going to continue using the same brush for them. I still have, well, never mind. Let's mix a whole new one. I still have some to use as a base, but that's okay. We'll mix a new one. So I'm going to start with red again. And I'm going to add some blue. We're going to add a little bit of white to that. And you see this time I added quite generous amount of blue because I wanted my purple to be more on the bluer side, so it's more like a cold purple. That's still way too dark, so we're going to add a bit more white to it. Now this, I think, would be a really good color for us. So let's try it, and then if it doesn't look right, we're just going to adjust it. First one, I want to add my cloud right here, and how we're going to do it. So the top is going to be really, you know, shaped like a cloud. It's going to have those curves, and the bottom is a little straighter. It's not a full-on straight line, it's a little wavy line, but it doesn't have these crazy curves. So I'm always going to I always like to start with the top. You can even grab your small brush and do the outline if you prefer, or sketch them with a pencil, which I actually wouldn't recommend to sketch them with a pencil because I feel like it's doing the double work that's not really necessary. Okay, so that's my top. And notice this cloud is like super fluffy and tall on this section, and then gets smaller, 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 smaller. And it has a really nice point tip, like a little tail here. That's why I suggested maybe using a small brush for outline, and then you can fill it with a medium brush. But also, if your medium brush has a nice tip, you can just do it with a medium brush. Or if you're using larger canvas. And then I'll do the bottom just like a wavy line, but not a crazy wave, just a very slight wave. And that's it, we're going to color it in. And if you guys are doing your edges, you're gonna need to bring your cloud to your edge as well and continue painting it. Stay consistent with everything coming to the edge. Done. That's one cloud. Then I'm gonna add one from the edge here. It's gonna be a tiny one. So you can use tiny brush or stay with the same brush, whatever works for you. Just make sure it's a small cloud. And again, the same deal, it should end on a nice pointed tip. We're going to extend it to our side as well. And then we're going to add two more clouds here. You can do some of them higher, some of them lower, or you can do them all on one line. It's completely up to you. So I'm going to do my second one somewhere right here. So this one, because we can see both ends of the cloud, not just one end and one end here. You're going to see both ends, so both ends should end on that little tail. So they should be fluffy in the middle, and then a little smaller, 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 and have little tails. As if you like squeeze the croissant. Basically, it's a croissant shape in a way, but the tails go a little bit finer. And I'm going to add my last one. It's going to be somewhere right here to make this one a little lower. But again, as I mentioned earlier, you can do them all on the same line. It doesn't really matter. Maybe I'll switch to my small brush too, because this one seems tricky with my medium brush. All right, we have our clouds. Now, we're going to move to our pink clouds. And then right here, we're actually going to add even coral clouds. So I usually like to start with pink, but it really doesn't matter. We can start with coral, we can start with pink. I still want to start with pink. So in my case, I still have that hot pink that we used right here. So if you have that, that's exactly what you're going to be using. If not, you can make it again. It doesn't have to perfectly match the bottom color. As long as it's similar, that's all that matters. And I would say probably ideally you want to use small brush, unless your canvas is much bigger than mine, in which case you can use any brush that you find appropriate. And we're going to add some clouds here. So they're going to start at this section. So not on a yellow, more on a coral, peachy, light section. And you can add as many as you want and position them however you want. And those are going to be a little bit less fluffy, but you're still going to start drawing in a way with a brush the top and then doing the bottom, because top still is a little curvier than a bottom. Also, another little helpful thing is I highly suggest that you water down your paint when you do this. So you do this with nice liquid paint because you're working on fine details. No matter how good your brush is, if your paint is too thick, you're not going to be able to do fine details. So make sure your paint is liquid enough for you to create those details. That's actually very important. Got a little tiny one right here. Tiny little guy. You see they're less shaped. There are less of those circles on top, the less curves. They're less defined. on those clouds just because they're much, much smaller. All right, let's refocus my camera on the clouds. I'm actually going to get closer to them. So that's all we need to see right now. We don't need to see anything else really. Oh yeah, good. A couple of them are going to be super tiny. It's like a little flick. I'm going to smudge them with a finger. And then with watered down, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to water down my pink a little bit more. And just a little bit of that. I'm going to add a bit some here, and water it down and wash it off as well. It's like a little wash in pink. You can skip that if you feel like, oh, that's going to ruin it for me. Just want a little bit of that pink, and I'm going to add some on this as well. Just a touch. All right. Now I'm going to add a few peach colors. So if you still have that coral or peach color, one of them, great, use that. If you don't have, what you could do, take some of that pink, add a bit more white and a bit more yellow, and you should be arriving somewhere at this color scheme, and that's good. That's all we need. I'm going to add a couple of those as well. And one right here. Alright, then you can add some peach here too along the way if you want to. Just like a little touch. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add purple on my lower cloud. So any shade of purple that you have, I'm going to go with this purple, but really it doesn't matter. Any purple that you have, just grab a little bit of that, not too much. You want to almost use almost dry brush, but you can water it down and use wet paint. Just make sure you only have a touch. And we're going to add it on some of the lower clouds, mostly on the bottom of the cloud. So those are going to be white color clouds. So I guess my camera keeps going out of focus. I'm not sure why. And of course, bring it to the edge too. Get a bit more to this cloud. Alright, that's our bottom clouds. Now we can move on to our top clouds. So for our top clouds, we're actually just going to use one color. It's going to be pink. And because I'm going to start with the bottom and I'm going to work my way down, so I'm going to start with the biggest ones and I'm going to work my way down. You can use either medium brush or even medium large, or you can use medium small. Whatever works for you guys. I think I'm going to start with my medium large and see how it goes, and then if anything I can always switch to medium small. So again, I'm going to make a little bit more of that pink. You can use a little bit lighter pink this time because we're not adding it over the white canvas either. We're adding it over already painted area, and don't use too much paint either. So I'm going to start with this top cloud. It almost starts in a corner here, a little bit higher than that. Actually, I'm going to make it darker. That is a little too light. Oh yeah, that's beautiful. Using just a little bit of paint. Always we're going to start with the top because the top again is really textured. And then as we go down, then we're going to do the bottom. So here I'm going to do something different for the bottom. I'm actually going to take my finger and I'm going to smudge it a little. You see it creates a darker shade. And the reason why, because it gets more transparent there. So you can see a purple. It overlaps the purple this way. That's why it almost looks transparent. And let's bring it all the way onto our edge as well. Stay consistent. Yeah, I'm going to switch my brush to a smaller one. This seems a little too big for this size canvas. Yeah, I'm going to go with this one now. That was just the biggest cloud. And I generally find that it's easier to do clouds with more of a circular or pointy brushes. So if you have that, I would suggest it. But if not, square brush works too. I'm going to do this cloud. Your clouds don't have to be the exact same shape as mine. That's okay if they're not. Second cloud. And add a small one right here. And one right here. Just continue adding as many clouds as you want. Make sure some are bigger, some are smaller. You don't want to have, copy-paste clouds. So I'm going to add another big one here, and then a couple small on top. Some of them I don't even have to smudge the bottom because my brush is so dry that it automatically blends just as it should. Now, I have the base for all my clouds. Now, I'm going to show you guys something that's super optional, but could be beneficial if you wanted to add it. You can add second layer of lighter color, but only on the upper part. So to the same pink you just used, add a little bit more white. And with this lighter color, you can go closer to the top part and just add a little bit of that. Add a little smidge of lighter pink. You don't have to do it. If you feel like your clouds are just the way you want them, don't mess with them. But you can also add just a little bit of that. Sometimes I dab up the bottom part so it's a little more smudged as well. And if you decide to do this, it's best to do it right away so it blends a little bit into your clouds. So it doesn't stick out too much in the end. And again, don't use too much paint. Do it more like a dry brushing technique. Notice I'm only smudging the bottom part because top part I want it to stay contrast. And I want my bottom part to be a little softer. Alright guys, now if you like taking breaks, this is another really good time to take a break. So we've done everything that needed to be done in one chunk. Now we're only going to deal with the black from now on. So if you wanted to take a break, this is also a good time to do it. If not, totally fine. You don't have to do it. We can continue working. We don't need a break. So it's just an option for you. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to move on to my horizon line. And you can use small brush or medium small, but small probably is better. We're going to use some black, and I'm going to water down my black. And the reason I'm watering down, it's not for transparency. I'm not trying to make it transparent. I'm just trying to make it liquid enough for me to be able to do a really nice fine lines with it. Once you feel like it's liquid enough, then you can add the horizon. And you can make it super straight, and you can make it slightly wavy. Either is fine. In my case, as you can see, it's slightly wavy. It's not super straight line. I'm capable of much straighter lines than that. This is intentionally like that. And then we're going to add a bit of hills on top. So you generally want them a little bit higher, closer to the ends, and a little bit lower in the middle, but it really doesn't matter. Just don't go too high up overall with your hills. And of course, we're going to bring that to the edge as well. Beautiful. It's getting there, guys. It's getting there. Now, the only thing that left for us is trees. So what I'm going to do for my trees is I'm going to start with the tree trunks. I'm going to position my trees. So I'm going to put one vertical line for every tree trunk to know where my trees are going to be positioned. So again, you want to make them fine, so use the smallest brush that you have and liquid black. And I usually prefer to start with the tallest tree. So for me, tallest tree is going to be somewhere around here, and it's going to go into my clouds, so somewhere until there. Again, it's not like a super precise math. Wherever you position it, that's where it's going to be. Alright, my one tree trunk, and there's going to be a smaller one somewhere right here, super close to the edge. It's not really small, it's just smaller than the first one. The next one is going to be even smaller. It's going to be somewhere right here. And there's going to be a slightly bigger one, just that goes right into clouds. By the way, they don't have to be evenly spaced out, just so you know. But they can be, that's okay too. I'll add one more somewhere right here. Alright, that's my cloud, that's my trees on one side, and on the other side I'm just going to add one. Beautiful. Now, we're going to add branches to our trees. I would say, guys, don't do this yet, just to watch me do it first. And then when you're comfortable and you get the idea of how to do it, I would suggest you try it on a separate piece of paper first before going right into your painting. Maybe practice one or two there, and then whenever you feel like you're getting a hang of it, then you can move to your painting. So what I'm going to do is use the smallest brush you have, and again, use the black paint that's watered down. I'm going to start with the top. The top branches are going to be super fine, and as I'm going down, they're going to get longer. And all the branches are going to be flipped from the middle and point down, down, down. and they're not going to be straight. They're going to be slightly curved. Some you can add occasional up, but most of them are going to be down. So let me show you. Actually, this one is not ideal because then I'm going to hit it when I do the rest. Yeah, never mind. We'll do that one. That's okay. I'll be careful around it. But when you start painting, I would suggest you start from the, if you're right-handed, you start from the left and you make your way. That way you don't accidentally put your hand on a wet tree and then smudge it all over your painting. But I will be very careful around it. So we started with the smallest branches. Do you see? I flicked them out and down, out and down, out and down. They're super, super small. And then as I go lower, start making them a little bit longer. You can make occasional up. That's okay too, but most of them should be down. Now, this is the base for my branches. Now I'm going to flick down from every single branch. I'm going to get even closer with my camera here. So for the top ones, it's really hard, so you can either leave them or just add like a little dots on the bottom. Like widen them up closer to the tree trunk, or just leave them as is because there's not much you can do there because they're so tiny, right? And your brush can only take so much. But as I go down, I'm starting to flick. Flick, 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 flick. See, I'm flicking from the branch down. And use just the very tip of your brush. That's why I'm suggesting to use as good of a brush as you have. So use the best brush that you have. Basically fluffing up your branches. If this technique is too much for you and you feel like, oh my gosh, this is way too complicated, that's okay. Switch to easier trees. There are lots of ways to do easier trees. You don't have to make them so complicated. This is just how it is on the original painting, so I want you guys to learn how to do it. But again, there are always options to modify it. So this is what it looks like. And overall, when you look at your tree, it should have this pointy triangle shape. It should gradually get wider as you go down. And it should have a really nice pointy tip. That's what we're looking for here. Now let me show you a modifiers before I move on to the rest of my trees. So for example, if this is too much, there are much easier options to do your tree. The most easy option would be this. So you do a tree trunk, and then again, maintain the triangular shape, and you just do this. Flicks in the middle. Smaller ones on top, and as you go down, they should be getting bigger and bigger and bigger. That's the easiest way to do your tree. If you want a little more complicated, you can do this, just wider flicks in general. So the same as you were doing the first one, just without fluffing up each branch. So basically just do your branches wider as you go right away. So those are both good options to do your trees easier because it involves less step, as long as you maintain the same pointy triangle shape. And those you would be doing with a medium or medium small brush, not with small brush. This you'll be doing with small brush. So I'm going to move and I'm going to do all my trees like that, like this. I'm going to go to this one now. And by the way, it's okay for your trees to merge and overlap. That's totally fine. and I'm going to do the edge here too, because again, everything that goes to the edge will go over the edge as well. I'm going to extend a few of my branches, go over the edge here. And guys, don't rush through trees. Trees are the most tricky part here, and they're black, and they are last step, and they're really up front close to us, so they need to be detailed. So don't rush through this. Take your time. If there's one thing you should really take your time on doing, it's the trees. So unfortunately, there's no way to fix them if something goes wrong. You're just gonna need to roll with it. All right, one more tree. Or for me, one more tree for me. I'll make this one a little fluffier. And of course, as with everything else, I'm going to bring those to the bottom. Just going to add some black there. I'm not going to bother doing branches and everything else. I'm just going to color the sections where my trees go black. I'm actually going to use the bigger brush actually. And that is it, guys. After that, the only thing that is left for you is to sign it. So choose a good spot wherever that may be on your painting. I'd probably suggest somewhere on the bottom and put your name or your signature or initials, anything that you prefer. And we are officially done. Guys, I really hope I'm going to see some of your paintings. So I will encourage you, please take a photo and you can post them in our Facebook group. We have a Facebook group dedicated specifically to our events, for everyone who participated in any of our events, Zoom events or YouTube events, any event, or painted from any of our videos, to share their results there. Please do. You can find the name and the link to this group on the bottom here in the description of this video. So please do that. We love seeing how they turned out. And I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. We have lots of wonderful acrylic, drawing, and watercolor free tutorials here on YouTube. We also host Zoom events pretty much every day. Unless it's summer, then not every day, because, you know, we need to do fun things too. So feel free to do that if you haven't done that yet. And if you guys really enjoyed this and you want to say thank you by tipping me, you can do that as well. I will never say no to that. There's a tip link. It's a PayPal link in the description of this video too. You can just click on it and tip any amount that you'd like. We love all kinds of tips. There's no tip too big or too small. We love all of them. So feel free to do that if that's what you would like to do. And that's pretty much it, guys. Join me for my next event in a couple weeks, and I'll see you there. Bye, everyone.